How's everybody doing tonight? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 71. Tonight, my special guest is Joseph Grillo from the amazing mathy rock, emo, post-hardcore band Garrison, based out of Boston, Massachusetts. He was also in a big band called Instruction, which a lot of people know. He was also in a band called Gay for Johnny Depp. He's in a couple new bands now called Judas and Her Head's on Fire. So we'll talk about that stuff. What Garrison back in the day, the re-release that's going on Iodine Records. His days working at the space in Worcester for all the New England heads, especially Massachusetts people that had so many amazing shows at the space and got to see great hardcore shows. Super stoked to talk to him. So hope everybody's doing good. I'm running around like a basketball dad like crazy. Lately, my both girls are in multiple basketball teams, so I've just been running around doing all kinds of stuff. There was a school game tonight, but it got canceled due to COVID, which has been happening all the time. So it's a crapshoot whether, the game gets canceled or practice gets canceled or, whatever. But that's what I've been doing. I've just been racing around and super busy with that on top of work and, dogs and a wife. And, it's been crazy, but fun. So luckily, we all got hit with COVID about a month ago and everybody came out of it all right. So we're kind of in the clear for a little while, still being safe as hell, though, because, it wasn't fun. Luckily, my youngest was asymptomatic, but the three of us that weren't kind of, had a couple of bad days. So just be safe out there. That's all I'm saying. Joseph should be jumping on any second. And I appreciate anybody that's watched these talks that I do. I'm going to continue to do them, maybe I don't know, 30 or more talks, and then I'll probably start doing something else after that. But I want to get at least 100 on YouTube and on Instagram Live, and then I'll try to do something else hardcore-wise. And if anybody wants to see me talk to anybody, anybody that I love as a musician, and you want to hear me talk to somebody, and I love that person, reach out to me, ask like, hey, maybe talk to this guy. And I'm always up to, love recommendations and I'd love to hear it. I know Joseph was, running around with his kids trying to get things done too, so it could be a minute or two. But like I said, I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody has a great holiday, safe. I'm not ready yet, but all right, Joseph, I'm going to grab you right now. Joseph, how you doing?
I'm good, Hal. How are you?
Good. Let me fix myself so I'm not totally out of center. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Perfect. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to do this and speak with me. I really appreciate it. Garrison was very special to me back in the day, especially, the Bend Before the Break EP was, one of my favorite things of all time. I always listen to it. Till this day, and it's on my playlist at work too, and you know what I mean. I'm a supervisor at a warehouse, and everybody gets to hear Garrison at least once or twice every week. So
those poor bastards, man. Thank you. That's really kind, man. I'm really glad you did dig the record. That's awesome.
And the great thing is too, when Casey told me he was re-releasing it, I was really stoked on it too. Before we get started, how did that kind of come about where Casey got involved again? Like, I know that the model you guys put out, you kind of went from Revelation back to Iodine, went to Iodine, not back to Iodine, but and now he's doing the re-release of the EP. How did that kind of work out? And was there kind of a lot of, red tape to get that from Revelation to on Iodine?
Surprisingly, no. I mean, I think that, had we tried to do it 10 years ago, there might have been.
Yeah.
But with all the time that's passed, and basically what happened was I got back in touch with Casey. He'd taken a sort of extended break from music, and he was just like, oh, I want to start at the label again, and I want to start it with, sort of reissuing and doing vinyl productions of the stuff that he'd done in the past. So our original idea was to do the model, but we just done the model not too long ago,
Yeah.
on a German label called Arctic Rodeo. So we're like, okay, well, we could do a stateside press. And then he said, well, wait a second, just let me try something. And he called Jordan Cooper over at Revelation and said, hey, can I do this? And I think within, probably 2 minutes, Jordan's like, yeah, sure, fine.
Oh, no.
Well, the thing about that is, like, if you think about, Jordan and Revelation Records, is they have like the big records, like Gorilla Biscuits, Youth of Today, Texas is the Reason. They have some huge records.
Yeah.
And so he's got enough sort of irons in the fire. He's not going to release, like 500 copies of a Garrison record when he can release 5,000 copies of a Texas is the Reason record or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, man, just, go ahead. Hi, Mary Ellen. And so he basically said, yeah, and we ran with it. And then we got this guy, Dan McCarthy, who's Cape Cod local, and he was around sort of similar time frame. And I know that he was a fan of the band as well. And we started looking at his artwork to sort of reimagine what the artwork would look like. And then it went pretty quick. We remastered it. I got everybody in the band got back together and started talking again, which was nice. All 14 ex-members. And the record is actually coming out, and I think should be in people's hands probably in a week or two, maybe.
The layout looks really, really nice too. The art,
it's gorgeous. Yeah.
It looks really nice. I think Casey is doing a great job, like relaunching Iodine Records. I mean,
absolutely.
Their Wires release again was like amazing, and I was pumped to see Casey, back in the game again. It's kind of a fickle business getting back to a record label, running a record label, especially during a pandemic as well. You never know. It's a crapshoot, and it could be. So hats off to Casey for starting it again, and I love seeing him in the game again, honestly.
Yeah, me too. I mean, well, actually, surprisingly, the pandemic's been good for reissues. I mean, the thing about nobody's able to go to shows, and so everyone's like reliving their nostalgia and their memories and being like, oh my God, remember when?
Yeah.
So it's been great for bands putting out their old records again. So yeah, and it's nice to, I mean, I have a lot of musical projects, obviously, but Garrison was pretty important for me, and allowed me, was a real sort of foundational taking off point that allowed me to do a lot of different things in my life. And so to revisit that with pals is really fun. Be able to go back and listen to that music from 22 years ago is really fun.
Yeah. It's crazy that it's been that long because I think that record is pretty timeless too. I mean, I don't mean to brown nose you over and over again, but I mean,
thank you.
Usually when I first start these talks, I ask, what got you into music? What were you into when you were a kid in like early teenage years? Obviously, hardcore wasn't it. So what were you listening to back then that kind of hooked you with music?
Well, a lot of growing up in central Massachusetts, I actually grew up on like classic rock that was on the radio, hair metal and classic rock. Those two, which I think are still on the radio in central Massachusetts, are hair metal and classic. It's like Worcester, Mass is stuck in 1986. But it was interesting because then I remember listening to Pink Floyd's The Wall. And I did a lot of musical theater when I was younger. So hearing that, which is very musical theater based because there's all these choral groups and a lot of brass in that record. I thought the moment I heard it, this is a soundtrack to a production, right? And I fell in love with that. And then I was one of like maybe 5 kids in my school that listened to Pink Floyd. So I thought of Pink Floyd as like this cool underground band.
Yeah.
I had no idea they're like one of the biggest bands on the planet, right?
Yeah.
And then those same friends turned me on to like The Cure and REM and things like that, like basically, postmodern alternative music in the 80s. A lot of stuff is on 120 minutes and things like that. And so that became great because it just felt like, wow, this is for me and my friends. This is for the kids that play Dungeons and Dragons and maybe are socially awkward and don't really care about prom. This is for us. And it made sense. And then it wasn't until I think right around the same time, listening to like that early stuff in 88, 89, Jane's Addiction and stuff like that,
Mhm.
I started going to an illegal warehouse space in Worcester called the WAG, the Worcester Artist Group.
Yeah.
And that was really formative because it had performance art and sort of out visual art, you know, noise art. This band like Industrial Sonic Echo that was just some sort of like ambient noise with lights, and hardcore shows and
Yeah.
ska bands and hippie jam bands and hardcore bands, and it was wonderful. It was really I was incredibly I will always sing the praises of that place because I was incredibly fortunate to have that in my life.
Yeah. Now Worcester was like, me coming from, I was pretty much brought up in like the Haverhill, Massachusetts area, like Plastow, New
Yeah.
Hampshire, the border. You know, Worcester was very special to me, because of the Worcester Centrum. My
Yeah,
mom
yeah. Uh-huh.
was, you mentioned hair metal, and metal was a big part of my growing up. So I traveled to Worcester Centrum all the time with, at first my mom was taking me there, and I got
Mm-hmm.
to like all the big bands like Kiss, and the metal bands like Scorpions and
Yeah.
Rad, Ozzy and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. I saw all those bands like Deep Purple. I saw there, Aerosmith,
Uh-huh.
everybody, and so Worcester Centrum was very, very special to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting into hardcore, Worcester was very special to me too because of like the espresso bar
Yeah.
and the space that you worked at,
Mm-hmm.
was very, very important for me because that's when I first started really getting into hardcore. So I would go to the space all the time and see, Converge or Harvest or ISIS.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you, you coming from like the Worcester area, that area was a mecca of music back then.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
There's a lot of great stuff coming out of Worcester. I mean, the Worcester and Boston, especially at the time, I think that the Boston had his thing and Worcester had his thing.
Mm,
Um, and they played nice. Lowell had a thing too. I just wasn't that I wasn't that versed in it. But yeah, man, like there. So Ed, the other guitar player and singer and songwriter for Garrison, had taken the idea of the WAG. And as the WAG sort of dwindled, that generation that were doing it sort of dwindled away. He took it and made the space. And I think originally he wanted the space to be a little bit more broad, a little
yeah,
bit more art gallery-esque. And it very quickly became, well, we had to pay rent. So, we needed to do shows.
yeah,
And I was one of the summer kids, right? So I went off to college. So I'd come home to Worcester for the summer and I'd be there every day during the summer, pretty much. I'd be working a summer job directing theater camp at Holy Name. And then, and then as soon as I got out, I'd have dinner with my parents, and then I go straight to the space. And like, if it was, okay, we're building the stage tonight, that's what we're doing, or we're setting this up or whatever. And it never seemed like work because it was just hanging out with my friends, you
yeah.
know. And there was the Collective, the Go-Go, which I think still might be around.
Mm,
The Collective was great. That had a lot of really interesting out there kind of folks. And it was so nice to have an infrastructure. And I talk about this a lot too. It wasn't just the creative element. It wasn't just the bands. There were people going to the shows.
yeah,
Lots of people.
yeah,
You could play Boston and Worcester to 500, 600, 700 kids
yeah,
each night, back to back, because there were just so many kids that were interested in the underground, in what was going on. And that kind of sort of all exploded. And it exploded in the 90s, but Worcester and Boston felt it. And so that was great. And there's also something about Worcester and Boston, I felt that there's a real strong ethos of quality. You don't get up in front of people until it's pretty good,
yeah,
or what you can cobble together is pretty good. Whereas, I felt like LA and New York, sometimes it was like a little bit more kitsch. Like maybe the band wasn't good, but they had a really fucking killer idea or a
yeah,
great front person.
yeah,
Whereas there's a sort of real working class undertone of the Boston, New England scene, which is like, we're not going to get up until we're fucking tight and we're really good and we got our music down. And that sort of baseline level of professionalism was really important to me to learn at a young age.
Yeah, and then the Palladium kind of jumped off after those.
Yeah, that's right.
What year did the Palladium actually come into? I remember going to the Palladium a bunch, but I don't remember what year that kind of, I always remember the space, an espresso bar, and obviously like when I was younger, the Worcester Centrum. But when did the Palladium kind of like get going?
I don't know. I know that it used to be a club. I saw the Dead Milkmen there in 1989. And it's a funny story about that. But I don't know when it became the Palladium, because I remember it became, in my estimation, basically Scott Lee and Merrick were the two guys booking. Scott Ogre, he'd done some stuff out in Pearl Street. Those two guys really took over the Palladium. I don't remember when that was. I'd probably already moved to Boston, because I remember it as something else, which was funny because I played in, I think, 2012. We opened my band, I Had a Freedom, opened for 4 Years Strong at the Palladium.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna talk about my local cred. It's like, what's up, everybody? Like, 3,000 people or whatever. I'm like, hey man, like I saw the Dead Milkmen here in 1989, and just crickets, except for one security guy who's actually my age, and he was like, yeah. And I'm like, great, I got a security guy on my side. It was just like one of those like very, very painful lessons of my ineptitude sometimes at stage banter. But I don't know when the Palladium started, but yeah, the Palladium was super important because it took it was kind of when the stuff that was underground in space was big enough that kids from the suburbs, you didn't need to be in the know to go to the show. Like they would play, your mom could drop you off at the Palladium in the same way that your mom and my mom dropped us off at the Centrum. Whereas like there weren't too many moms dropping kids off at the space. It was a little bit more like,
Yeah, exactly.
It was more like the in scene as opposed to the outer scene.
Yeah, and also the Palladium was doing like hip hop shows back then too. Because I remember I saw Wu-Tang Clan at the Palladium. I don't remember what year it was, but I know that back then on the hip hop shows at the Palladium, they made you wait hours and hours and hours and hours before the the main act would come on. You would hear a DJ do records for about 4 hours, and then finally at 12:30, 1 o'clock, Wu-Tang would come out for about 45 minutes, and then that was it. So I remember those hip hop shows well. Same thing with Slick Rick. I waited hours and hours and hours to see Slick Rick there, and he performed for about 15 minutes. So,
wow, well, your due diligence paid off, because now you can say that you saw Slick Rick.
Yes, that's cool. That's true. Cool. Yes, that is true. Speaking of the space, and when you worked there, what were some of the memorable shows that you saw? I know that you had mentioned, I listened to a podcast where you said that you didn't really particularly like hardcore, and there was a lot of hardcore shows at the space. Do you remember some of the memorable shows that you actually witnessed at the space?
I did sound for Converge a lot whenever they would come through. I always loved that band. Kurt's a pal, and I really, really adore what they did. I like this sort of spazzy, noisier stuff. A lot of piebald shows, which is great. I'm actually going to be playing with Travis and the piebald guys soon again, so that'll be kind of a reunion, because I have so many wonderful memories of them. Bane was great. I will say I'm not a huge fan of hardcore, but Bane is something special, man. I always really appreciated a good front man, and Bedard had a great way of making people feel present. And in the moment, and it wasn't just sort of stock delivery like, hey man, this one's about the scene, and don't be getting your back stabbed and all that. It didn't seem stock. It felt very special. And so I've always loved that band. Plus also musically, I think they're a little bit more interesting than most hardcore bands. Hardcore, the energy is wonderful. The music just isn't particularly for me, because I just don't. It doesn't make me move my hips, man. What can I say?
Yeah, and when Stricken for Catherine, was there elements of like hardcore and punk there for you though, or was it kind of just like indie rock and like emo was kind of starting to become like a big thing then? I mean, what were kind of your influences like musically wise? Like, not I hate to talk about genres and stuff like that,
Yeah,
but were you pulling roots from like hardcore and punk when you started bands like that and Garrison?
hardcore punk, punk adjacent. So straight hardcore, like I always tell folks like I own more Ani DeFranco records than I do Black Flag, Minor Threat, The
Yeah,
Descendants combined. Same thing goes with metal, Slayer, just not my thing. But
yeah,
things influenced by it are awesome. So Drive Like Jehu was huge.
mm,
Rodan, who were on Touch and Go, huge. There's a band from Louisville called Bitch Magnet. They're really huge for me. Like really, I liked, and I still like Dissonance.
mm,
I liked things that were somewhat angular, and so uh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why. That's just the stuff I gravitated toward. Like the hardcore stuff just didn't. I didn't get chills, and I wanted music to give me chills. And the live show was awesome. Like the people being the crowd being part of the show
yeah,
is wonderful. Um, the 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 ethos is great, but I just wanted more musical inspiration. So yeah, so I would say Rodan, a lot of that like touch and go, early touch and go stuff.
mm,
Um, some of the spazzy stuff I did like. I don't know if they would be called hardcore, but I liked Ass Factor 4,
mm,
Swing Kids,
yeah,
Universal Order of Armageddon, the really kind of noisier stuff. Old Glory Records, which is based out of um, Worcester. They had Hoes Got Cable, were another band. I think they're from Richmond, Virginia.
yeah,
They were really beautiful to me. Um, so all that stuff was kind of, I think, what we were trying to do with Stricken for Catherine. But Stricken for Catherine also just, when you're young and you haven't done a band for a while, you kind of think you can reinvent the wheel. And so we were making music thinking that people were listening to it with the same level of attention that we were,
yeah,
which was not true.
yeah,
Um, and which is fine. Although still quite proud of it. It's,
yeah,
I understand why we weren't big. Um, and then Garrison just sort of made sense because it was myself and Ed, and he'd been in a similar sort of epic rock band called Iris,
yeah,
and we were like wanting to write rock stuff, like uh, that's when we let influences more like Elvis Costello
mm,
come out. I don't think we sound like Elvis Costello, but like short, concise songwriting.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you know, and I think that was super important to us.
Yeah, and on top of that, it was, I mean, like I said, the bed before the break. There's a lot of catchy parts to that record. You know what I mean? And I feel like I'm like huge into that. You mentioned Elvis Costello. I'm big into the '80s, not new wave, but like that era of kind of music where Joe Jackson and
Yeah,
Elvis
great.
and stuff like that. Is that kind of the catchiness that you were trying to gravitate towards in Garrison? Just like you said, short songs, but catchy too, where it would
Yeah.
be pleasing to the ear. Because I mean, there's a lot of parts on that record where they're very memorable, whether it be the vocals or the guitar parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think Ed had a more melodic ear than I did, so he was even better at that. Sort of the catchier hooks. Um, I liked a little bit more aggression and the angular things, and he had a really good, still does have a really good sort of pop ear. Um, so I think that was definitely being incorporated to a degree. We weren't trying to be, a sound alike band, but that
Yeah.
was definitely one of the sounds we were trying to incorporate in what we did.
Yeah, and everybody always says that you guys were a post-hardcore band. I mean, do you agree with that? Or I mean, like I said, chopping up genres is such a a dicey thing. You could get you
I
know,
mean, sure, in the way that, I mean, we loved Quicksand,
mm,
so they were post-hardcore. I don't know. I mean, those terms are always a little bit weird. It's guitar rock, basically. I mean,
yeah,
all that stuff, all that all that emo post-hardcore stuff,
Yeah.
all that is kids from the hardcore scene getting better at their instruments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just that because they want to explore different sounds. So when you're, 15, it's really easy to punk and hardcore,
Yeah.
and you play fast, and it doesn't really matter if you're a little sloppy because it's fast. But then you get a little bit better at what you're doing in your craft, and maybe you want to expand. And so I think that if the kids involved in the emo, indie rock, post-hardcore genre hadn't been already involved in the scene,
Mm.
I don't know if it would resonate. Like, for example, like Texas the Reason is simply a rock band.
Yeah.
It just happens to be Norm from Shelter
Yeah.
and Chris from 108. Like, and because of that, they're like, oh, it's a new thing. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but
Yeah.
like, they were more influenced by a band like Seam, Sue Young Park's band that were, I think they're on Touch and Go as well. And I think that because it's from a scene, it sounds fresh and new. You can hear that today. That band Turnstile,
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
sure you're familiar with them. Like, they sound straight, like they sound like Incubus and 311 to me. Like, and not in a bad way. Like,
Yeah.
I actually think they're better than that stuff. But and I think the guy's voice is super compelling, but because they're from the hardcore scene, it sounds totally new.
Yeah.
Like, which is awesome. Like, that's context is really important. And I think that for a lot of kids, they've never heard anything that sounds like that band. And that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
that's so exciting and inspiring when you're 15 to 25, in that range. Like, those things that you can hold on to and be like, that's mine. That's my sound. That's my generation's sound. I think that's really important for people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think in the late 90s where quote unquote emo bands started exploding. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that really was a resurgence in that type of music because and do you think Garrison got popular because it was as such a I feel like it was like a new, fresh thing back then. So, bands like Garrison, the Jazz June, Casket Lottery, Mid Carson July, Hot Water Music, Small Brown Bike, like that was an explosion at that time. And then,
Mm-hmm.
hardcore kids would, kind of cross over to that type of music, but still love hardcore too, because I had always been a hardcore kid. And I always love the heavier things, grindcore, power violence, stuff like that, but I was hooked on that emo side of things, and I think it was kind of an explosion at that time. Do you think it was almost like you know catching lightning in a bottle at that time, where all those bands were so popular and so many people were listening to it at that time, that kind of got more ears to Garrison at that time?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that, well, so there's several things going on at once, right? So I think that, I think it was a particularly exciting time where, you had the 90s, like, and I don't mean to go off into this stuff as if we're like, I'm a musicologist or anything, but like, you had the 90s where you had, basically in the 80s, everything that was on the radio was just like pop, pablum, horrible, or hair metal, which was the same side of horrible. And then you had grunge and alternative music explosion. So you had, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, for your guitar rock, and then you had the Beastie Boys, which were awesome. Then you had bands like Morphine,
Mm.
like a drummer, a guy playing two saxophones, and a guy playing a two-string bass on the fucking pop charts.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Primus is weird. You had all these things sort of coming out and allowing people to accept different sounds. So you
Yeah.
had that, and then so these things break apart, and then they come back again. And so what happened was, Michael Azerrad talks about this in Our Band Could Be Your Life, which is a great book, and he talks about that after Nirvana hit, it became verboten to be authentic. So you had bands like Pavement that were always tongue-in-cheek,
Yeah.
where like if you say things like "I love you," you're like, "I guess I love you," or like whatever. Like, you can't say a feeling, right?
Yeah.
And so emo was the response to that. So Frizzle Fry, nice. Emo was like, yeah, I have feelings, and I'm gonna wear them on my sleeve, and I'm gonna tell you that maybe I'm having a tough time with A, B, and C. And
Yeah.
then furthermore, you had the hardcore scene everything's like, what are you allowed to like?
Mm.
And if my emo band plays with the hardcore band or the metal band, you're allowed to like it, and you can still call yourself a hardcore kid. You're not a sellout, right? So you have that, and everybody wants to be into something new. They don't want to be into what their older brother or sister was into. So you had all these things kind of coalescing and converging, there's a pun, at the same time. And you had this really vibrant, exciting scene of musicians that were inspired by frankly, Ian MacKaye and Fugazi and the whole DIY ethos to sort of do it ourselves and get it out there. So you had all these things happening. And a very hungry set of kids that wanted new sounds. I mean, you must remember when you were 20, you obviously loved hardcore in the scene, but when you heard something new that spoke to you, like, you just can't shut up about it.
Yeah.
You want to tell everybody, like, oh man,
Yeah.
you fucking got to hear this record. Like, check out this Mineral record. It's really cool. Like, yeah, the guy can't really sing that well, but it doesn't matter because when this part comes in, it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
Or At the Drive-In. Did anybody hear At the Drive-In and not talk about it nonstop for 6 months? Like, no, everybody just like, wow, it's awesome. And I think that was great, you know? And so I don't mean to go all over the place with what I'm saying, but I think that it was a really neat time. And there's probably something really cool happening now that we don't know about because we're old.
Yeah, that's true.
But I bet there's something awesome happening somewhere. And,
yeah.
And if somebody's 20 and they want to fill me in on it, I'd love to find out.
I know. I only have 20. Like, what's today's date? So I have a little more than 20 days of being in my 40s until January 1st, and then
congratulations!
I vote on January 1st. So yeah,
you're 40.
I'm old.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's awesome, man. The nice thing is, like, you've never been more prepared for anything life hands you.
That's
nothing
true.
wrong with growing older. In fact, it's cool. I mean, you know, getting sick and dying sucks, but like, there's nothing bad about having more wisdom.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of, like, kind of listening to something new and being like, you got to hear this record coming from like a metalcore or hardcore background. The band that did that for me was Piebald. When I first heard Sometimes Friends Fight, it still had the hardcore screaming element, but then it had the singing in it. And, you know, like you said, sometimes it's not well received with your friends, you know what I mean? Because my friends were all metalcore kids and hardcore kids, and they were moshing at the time and this and that. And then when I say, you got to listen to Sometimes Friends Fight, they, you know, I caught a lot of flack at first, but I just kept going at them, like saying, listen, this band is amazing. I've seen them live a bunch of times. Like, you got to see them live. And then, of course, they play with Converge and you know, all the other big hardcore bands at that time back then. So then they would get exposed to it. And then, you know, little by little, you know, years later, they were like, all right, Piebald is pretty good. You know what I mean? But that was the first band that kind of pushed me in that way towards like the emo side of things. Because I was kind of, you know, I had my blinders on until I kind of, that record caught my ear and made me think a different way. And thank God it did, you know what I mean? Because I hate, you know, when you're a kid, you kind of want to listen to what you want to listen to, and you're not really open to new ideas and stuff like that. But I'm just touching on kind of what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, and also sometimes you need those blinders on because it allows you to focus on one thing. So for example, like, you know, growing up on like the Beatles and classic rock and all that stuff, and then alternative music, I got into a phase probably around 94, 95, where I couldn't listen to melody. I wanted everything to be super angular and dissonant.
Yeah.
Like, the uglier the better, you know? and like, so I'm listening to a lot of Shellac and Don Caballero, and I just wanted like things like just to be and like really, I loved like the friction.
Yeah.
And then that allows you to do a deep dive into that. But then, you know, then you have those moments where you kind of bob your head above water and you're like, is that Portishead?
Yeah.
Because that's amazing. And like, is that the new Bjork record? That's really, really good. And so it's okay to have those blinders on sometimes. You just want to keep them on your whole life. Because then you listen to only one genre of music, and that's terrible.
Yeah. I agree with you. Portishead Dummy was a huge record for me.
So good.
It's so good. And then also, like, the Sundays always hooked me too. Like, the Sundays albums were always like special to me too. So I was kind of different in a lot of my friends because, like I said, they were like strictly hardcore, and I had grown up hardcore and metal and stuff like that my whole life. And I still listen to. Don't get me wrong, I listen to a shit ton of new hardcore screamo stuff too. But I always listen to a bunch of different things because it just keeps me grounded
Hmm.
mentally. You know what I mean? I get bored if I listen to the same thing. I listen to a lot of hip hop, not so much the trap style of the new hip hop, but more boom bap style of the
Hmm.
90s when that kind of exploded. There's still bands and rappers that are doing that style nowadays too, so it's kind of
Hmm.
refreshing to still, you know, get my hand in that too as well. I try to stay as fresh as I can on new artists. It's tough being old and still wanting to listen to the old stuff and do you listen to a lot of new stuff you know at
I try to, but I'm not like I'm 3 years behind. So I'll hear a band like 3 years after everybody else. Like I'll hear, I don't know, like Warpaint. Love Warpaint.
mm,
Um, Joy Formidable. Really love Joy Formidable. But like I hear these bands sort of after. I don't hear them on their first record. Where when I was younger, I was like I would have heard them on their demo tape. I'm
yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
into it, right? So now it's like things have to permeate and get to me because I don't have my finger on the pulse as it were anymore. Because I got other shit going on, man.
Yeah.
um,
I,
but it's nice when it does get to you. Like it's nice to still be surprised. Like I don't like I'm not a big fan of being jaded anymore. Or being like, oh yeah, my generation made the best music. There's crap coming out. Bullshit. There's amazing stuff coming out.
yeah.
And it's so nice having listened to however many thousands of albums I've listened to and made however many records I've made to hear something and still be turned on by it,
Mm,
and still be like, oh, that gives me that same feeling I had the first time I heard Pixies, that feeling like that inescapable, you wish you could put it in a bottle or put it in a pill because that feeling it's just joy. It's like it's not being alone, right? It's that there's other people on the planet that maybe view the world the same way or a similar way that you do. What a fantastic feeling to be able to make that, and experience it. It's
yeah.
the best. It's the best.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to Garrison real quick.
Sure.
When you guys started, I was listening to the podcast that you were doing, maybe a couple months ago, and you were saying that basically, you guys played a few shows and then booked a tour right away. Was that the case? Kind of I know Kurt Ballou had kind of helped you with contacts and stuff like that. How did that just get going? As Garrison turned into such a touring band. I mean, and right from the get-go too. Were you expecting that, and is that what you wanted at that time?
Mm-hmm. I wasn't expecting it, but it's what I wanted. So I remember the moment that Stricken for Catherine broke up in my head, right? So we'd played a show at the Middle East Upstairs with Hot Water Music and Grade,
Mm,
and and I just remember watching them play, and I said to the other guitar player, I'm like, our band has to break up, and he was like, why? And I was like, because I want to do what these guys are doing in a different city every night, and you don't want to do that.
yeah,
And however much musical connection we have, like that needs to end because I need to do that. And so I found a kindred spirit in Ed.
hmm,
And so, there was no stopping it. It's like, okay, well, let's get together. Let's record as a demo as quick as possible. And we recorded it before we had a bass player.
yeah,
Um, and then like, let's book a show. And I had these shows already for Stricken for Catherine, a couple of them in the works, and that band broke up. So I made them Garrison shows. And then we had the tour because Kurt had sent me a lot of those numbers. And I just called people like, hey, we're a band from Boston. We're going to be on the road. We have a demo tape out. We've been around for 3 months. We'd like to come and play your record store or your basement or your barbecue.
yeah,
And we went out and did it. And I think after that first experience, which is about 10 days,
hmm,
which still looms so large in my mind because that's how time works, right? Like the first time you experience something is so long. Those 10 days were like 3 months to me. Whereas
yeah,
I have tours that have gone for 3 months that I don't really remember a lot of. Um, But those 10 days were so formative. And we as a band had kind of like looked at each other and we're like, do you want to do this, man? I think we can. And we're like, maybe we can get somebody to put out a 7-inch, you know? And we're like, that'd be cool. And like, I think we can do this. I like this. Like, maybe we can book another tour for winter time. And so it's all steps like that, right? And then we got home and Revelation called. So Revelation allowed us to take a huge step quickly, you know. So we've been making these steps where we're silk screening our shirts and we're making our demo tapes, and then Revelation Records, you know. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you know, cool. And so now we have to jump up to that level, and okay, well, what kind of records are we going to make, and who are we going to make them with, you know? And thankfully there were enough friends, Brian McTurnan being one, who was in the scene, who was the right time, right place to help us out, and he was able to get that record, you know, out of us. And yeah, it was the thing I feel with most artistic projects is you have to build them with kinetic energy.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, not that you're like, oh, I'm going to be the next fucking, you know, I'm going to be the next Imagine Dragons, or whatever, like that it's going to reach a particular level, because you only have so much control over your financial success.
Yeah.
But you can control your artistic success in the way that, are you happy with it? Did you feel as motivated as possible? You know, were you thinking of the next step? And so with Garrison, we were like, it had kinetic energy. We're gonna tour. We're gonna play shows. If you want to be part of this, be part of this. But this is gonna happen whether Revelation Records comes along or not.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel that with everything that I've done musically. Like, you just have to go forward. Like, okay, what's the next step? Should we book a tour? Let's do a tour. Should we try and get some out to labels? You don't wait around. I mean, that's the whole DIY thing. Is you don't wait around. It's nice to have someone else do it for you. I don't mean to be DIY. I don't stamp my records. I don't, you know, handwrite everything. But it's nice to have some control of it and collaborate with people to make something that you can put out and still feel proud of. You know, so yeah, anyways, you make these artistic projects with sort of kinetic energy, and you sort of get behind it and just see where it lands. You know,
Now,
and if you're lucky enough to have a bigger label put it out, then cool.
but like, so the demo came out, right? But what was the 7-inch on Espo Records? Was that the
that was the demo.
What came first and what came second, and then?
So we did the demo. The demo was 3 songs, right?
Yeah.
And so we sold 300 copies of that, on tour. Then we got signed to Revelation, and because we were in Boston, I was like, people are going to be distrustful of us. So I called Shred over at Espo and I said, hey man, you want to put out a 7-inch before our record on Revelation comes out? And we were still signed to Revelation at the time. And he said, sure. Yeah. So he took the demo, 2 of the tracks on the demo, because it was a 3-song demo. And he put 2 of the tracks out on 7-inch, a couple different pressings of that. So we had that under our belt while we were recording Ben Before the Break. Yeah. So it was a little bit of a ruse, but I just felt like the Boston scene might be a little bit pissed off if our first record was on a you know, big Revelation Records, had the red star on it. Yeah.
Speaking of Espo Records, we were talking about Moment, you know, on the side.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm pretty sure that first Moment album was on Espo Records as well. Yeah. I had talked to John Howard, who is a great guy, and you said you kind of grew up with John.
Well, I went to college with his older sister, and when she found out that I did sort of, you know, underground rock music, she put me in touch with her brother, and he was booking like the VFW hall at his high school and the Portuguese American Club.
Yeah.
And so we played a bunch of shows with Moment and the Goonies, maybe. I'm not going to remember all the names. My Magnificent Machine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. I'm embarrassed now that I don't remember the Statue Factor. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, we played a bunch of shows, sort of, and those were the, you know, to kids in high school. That was really fun.
And when Garrison first started doing shows, you guys played a lot of shows with hardcore bands. I mean, it was a mix of a lot of different kinds of things. But I mean,
Yeah.
I remember the shows that I saw. I saw you guys play with Converge at the Karma Club show,
Hmm.
and I would talk to you kind of on the side too about the Mid Carson July show, which I like
Hmm.
really forgot that I had gone until somebody sent me a picture of me and me and my friend at the show. And I think that was at like the VFW in Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Yeah, that was in Lawrence.
But you guys played a lot of shows with hardcore bands. How did that kind of, did you get a good reception in the beginning when you were playing with hardcore bands back then?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think originally, or like, I always felt like originally in the early days, we were a band for the Canvas Patch Kids. You know, the kids that all had that were doing all the Food Not Bombs,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they had like, you know, now the Canvas Patches like a Souk and different, you know, bands, and that always made sense to me. Like the kids that would distro records out of a cardboard box. Hi, Dan Colby, that's for you, Mr. Distro and Records out of a cardboard box. And that made sense. The more, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it jockey hardcore, which would be like the straight edge hardcore, like In My Eyes, 10-Yard Fight stuff. I only call it that because they dressed in basketball jerseys or
yeah,
whatever. That those kids did not resonate with what we did. Um, they were all really nice guys, like the
mm,
people in the bands, and we knew them obviously from playing the space. But I don't think their crowd was too into what we did. But there was some crossover with Bane because we played with Bane a few times.
yeah,
But Bane was one of those bands that do that. I mean, we played a show with like Bane and Piebald and Garrison. Like that made sense.
yeah, yeah,
It still does in my head, you
yeah,
know. And it was also at a time in the late '90s when a lot of indie rock bands and hardcore bands and metalcore bands would play together. It made sense because it's all left of the dial. It's all not what's on the radio. It's all not, you know, what you're hearing blasting out of that guy's pickup truck, you know. And so that's nice for people to have. And so I think we were just in that, for lack of a better term, we'll call it just more underground music.
yeah. And touring with Garrison, I mean, was one of the first tours you did with Boy Set Fire, right? That was
Yeah,
one
that
of.
was the first stateside tour we did. Yeah, we learned a lot from those guys. They had just gone out with Snapcase.
Mm,
And so they were like a little band, and the Snapcase took them out, and they got quite a big following. And
yeah,
so they were on their In Chrysalis EP, and they very graciously took us out because we needed something. And I think it was Jason Upright at Revelation Records called them directly and said, "Hey, we have this new band with a EP coming out. Can you help us out?" We played a bunch of shows with them
yeah.
out to the West Coast, down the West Coast, and back. Um, that was dope, man. That was really fun. Those guys are still pals.
Now
You
there
know?
were a lot of memorable shows just because it was like your first stateside tour and
That was great. Yeah, we played the last show at Rock Candy in Seattle with Botch, and it was Botch and Boy Sets Fire. I want to say Catharsis, but I'm not sure about that.
oof,
And us and like a couple other local bands. That was a hoot. We played the Troubadour in LA, which was the first time I'd played there, which was really fun.
mm.
Sort of iconic rock club right in LA. We played the Basement in Phoenix, Arizona in like 110-degree weather. I remember that Nathan from Boy Sets Fire kept making fun of me because I would never wear shorts. I still don't. Um, I was just like, that's not very becoming. I'm not going to get on stage in shorts. I'll go running in shorts, but people paid for a show. I want to put on a show. But anyways, I felt like my head was in a fucking oven. That's what I remember about that show. Um, yeah, but those guys were cool, you know, and they had a bit of professionalism around them as well that I aspired to.
Yeah,
You know, they were the guys that sort of, you know, I was the guy in the band that basically, as soon as the band finishes, like I'm at the merch table and, you know, people buying stuff, cool, but I'm also filling out the CSAC sheets so I can mail them into CSAC, which is something you did back then. So I
yeah,
could get, basically $7.50 per show, and I would compile them all and then mail them to CSAC, and then the band would get a check. And so like, because I wanted to like, you know, dot my I's and cross my T's because I
yeah,
just felt serious about music, you know? You know, that was sort of me. And I remember those guys had a similar work ethic. They wanted to make it happen. Um, you know, I'm not saying they wanted a major label or anything, even though that came their way, but
yeah,
they wanted to make a living at it, or at least do the best job. They wanted to be able to sit back and say, you know what, I gave that my best shot, which I think is at the end of the day, that's what you want to be able to say about anything, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we gave it our best shot.
And you guys also toured with the Get Up Kids and Newfound Glory and
I
bands,
think so. Yeah.
and bands like that too.
Yeah.
What was kind of the best tour that Garrison ended up doing? Was it like, obviously, I know headlining in Europe was probably, the best for you guys, but I mean, what was kind of, with a band that you liked watching every night, what were kind of the tours that were special to you?
We played with 100 Reasons a lot in the UK. I love those guys. They had something magical about them that was really important at the time. They were kind of like the UK's answer to At the Drive-In.
Mm.
And then we did a tour that was a band called Jerry Built and a band called Kids Near Water and Garrison. And it was kind of like I think all three of us kind of could have headlined, you know?
Yeah.
That was the most camaraderie I'd ever felt on a tour. Like we were three bands, but we were one band, like that.
Yeah.
We were just like, it was just what a bunch of sweet, lovely, curious, great people, and that was a great time. And so that's the one I remember most for camaraderie. We had great shows here or there.
Yeah.
It was nice coming full circle and playing big shows in Germany with Boy Sets Fire,
Mm.
and being like, oh, I haven't seen you guys for 2 years. Remember when you took us out in the States? Like,
Yeah.
and they were like, hey guys, what's up? That was really nice. That sort of full circle thing. I mean, the thing about the music world is it's only like, in the real world is 6 degrees of separation. In the music world is 2. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
You just see them again and again and again. And that's been awesome. I mean, half the time I make records now is so I can hang out with old friends. I get to see Kurt. I get to hang out with Kurt for a week in the studio.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And like, we spend half the time talking about our kids. Like, or hey, remember when you used to work at the Big Burrito and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, that was the best burrito. That's what we talk about,
Yeah.
That's so much fun. And to be able to be fortunate enough to have moments like that still in my life as I'm, a middle-aged, probably past middle age. You think I'm going to live to be 98? And father, and I have that side of my life, but to be able to have this thing in my life that connects me to music and people is so special.
Yeah.
And I'm really super fortunate, like where you get to hang out. Like I'm able to tell my wife, please, I need an hour to do this, Instagram live thing with an old friend. And she's like, awesome, great. And we get to talk about the old days.
Yeah. Speaking of Big Burrito, I think I don't know, but you might have rolled a burrito for me back in the day because I used to
I would hope so.
I used to hit that place up quite a bit before hardcore shows. So
I was funny. I was telling Travis about this. So I worked with a lot of different people, and like Val and Eliza were like the two like most gregarious, fun-loving, beautiful women to work with. And whenever they would work, it would be so fucking hard to finish stuff and be so slow, but we got the most money. We got the most tips, right?
Yeah.
But whenever I worked with Travis and Adam from Cave-In, we got no money, but it was done. Like when it was time to close, everything was done. The dishes were washed, everything was mopped. Like those guys were on point. So it's just like the two sides of the coin were working. Those were fun times. I'm sure I made you did you have the barbecued tofu burrito and sweet potato fries? Was that your jam?
No, that wasn't mine. I was always running chicken.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we did a lot of that.
Yeah, I was always running the chicken. It's crazy thinking back on those times too. Just before hardcore shows and stuff like that. I'd always go to Bob's in Medford too. And always get a steak and cheese sub before I would hit a hardcore show or something like that. Because Bob's
you were well fueled. That's great, man. You were ready to fucking rip it up in the pit.
I was traveling from New Hampshire, so I had to be. You know what I mean?
Where are you from, New Hampshire?
I live mostly in Plastow, New Hampshire.
Oh, Plastow, right, which is right on the line with. So you're familiar with Hafner's at Kicks, the gas station?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I used to drive through there on my way. I went to UNH college, so I used to drive through there quite a bit.
I knew you lived in New Hampshire for a while.
Yeah,
It was in Durham. Is that where you were
yeah,
living?
yeah. Well, I lived in Dover, but I went to school in Durham.
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I
Um,
remember that was the only place I'd ever seen that you guys had a drive-through chock full of nuts.
yeah,
Like instead of a Dunkin' Donuts, it was a chock full of nuts like
yeah,
shop. That's
yeah. It was
crazy.
very
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was always around the Merrimack Valley hardcore area and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And obviously I branched out to listening to a lot of, which I didn't call it screamo at the time, but when I got older, I kind of listened to like Seisha and Orchid and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That was like big for me, and still is now. But I was always around everything.
Hmm.
A tough guy hardcore when I was younger to, um, you know. Like I said, screamo to emo to everything. I always had my hand in a bunch of stuff, and I still do to this day. I wanted to ask you about hair metal bands. So, what were some of your favorite hair metal bands when you were listening to it back then?
Well, I saw Bon Jovi on the Slippery When Wet tour, 1986, right? And Europe opened. No, no, not Europe. No, no, no. That was a different show. Cinderella opened.
Cinderella. I was at that
Yep.
show. I
Yeah.
was at.
Oh, so there we. My mom dropped me off. We were probably on like nearby. Um, yeah, the Bon Jovi Cinderella show was good. I saw Def Leppard there. Saw Def Leppard a couple times at Great Woods too. One time Queensryche opened, and the other time Europe opened with the Final Countdown, which is their one song.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh no, they.
yeah, that was it really because I didn't like. I mean, I listened to it because it was like I don't remember thinking about enjoying it.
Mm,
It was just the only thing you listened to. Like,
yeah.
and I remember liking. I think I liked Motley Crue a little bit, like Shout at the Devil.
Yeah.
I like some of the darker like chord progressions. But then I heard Jane's Addiction,
Hmm.
and that was like there was before hearing Jane's Addiction, and there was after hearing Jane's Addiction.
Yeah.
And so I heard Jane's Addiction, and I had a friend turn me on to it in '87, and I think in '88 Guns N' Roses came out, Appetite for Destruction, and I was like, whatever, not impressed
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not Jane's Addiction.
Yeah.
Like Jane's Addiction was where it was at, man. Like that was just the fucking cool because it was indie rock, but it also had these like crazy guitars and musicianship,
Yeah.
that I really dug. So yeah, that was the if you could say that basically Jane's Addiction were an extension of hair metal in a way, or sort of the death knell of hair metal in many ways because they incorporated the alternative thing. That was the last hair metal thing that I listened to, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of Guns N' Roses and Appetite for Destruction, I had never resonated towards, like, everybody always talks about Nirvana kind of bridging the gap between, like, I heard that and then I started listening to hardcore and stuff like that. It could be our age or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but it never, like, I never was hooked by the grunge scene or Nirvana or anything like that. I was more like Jane's Addiction or Sonic Youth or
Mm-hmm.
like Smashing Pumpkins was kind of pushed into that genre a little bit, but I like Smashing Pumpkins a lot too. Like the Breeders,
Because he's a sick guitar player. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
the Breeders was big for me. Like that
yeah.
kind of stuff was more my style, and Nirvana never really like it. It just didn't grab me like it did everybody else, and I
It's your age. It's your age because to me, I remember hearing Nirvana and it was like I was like, oh, they're like a okay Pixies cover band,
mm,
and like, but they weren't Pixies. Like they didn't have that real um, artistic darkness. You know what I mean? Like art school darkness to them.
yeah,
Um, but they had something different that was really cool, and I think it for a lot of people it was the first thing like that they had heard.
yeah,
So I totally understand why they're important and why
mm,
they're huge, but I know what you mean. Like they never, I wasn't like oh, Nirvana. I was like, cool, this is a good record,
yeah,
it's fine. Um, but yeah, Sonic Youth had more going on. Smashing Pumpkins just as a sick guitarist, you know what I mean? Like that guy's, I mean, he comes off like such a jackass in interviews, but he's a great guitar player, man. He really is. Um, and he has a great voice when he's not doing his whining thing. I don't know who told him that he should be like, meh, like sound like a cat that got his tail stepped on. But like his voice when he actually sings is beautiful. But
Yeah.
I just can't stand it when he's like, meh, I'm a
Yeah.
rat in a cage. I'm sorry, I'm just coming off like such a negative prick. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, but that thing just boils my blood. I don't know.
Um, like talking about Revelation 2 and Garrison, did you
Yeah.
guys feel like you had a fit as you kept going? Because just because Revelation is always, you were talking about like Judge and Gorilla Biscuits and Bold and bands like that. Did you guys feel like you really fit in that label? And if you didn't, is that kind of why you went back to more of a DIY label in Iodine after you guys?
Well, so those bands, didn't mean a lot to me.
Mm,
What meant a lot to me on Revelation was Engine Kid and Texas is the Reason.
yeah,
And Iceburn, actually. I think that Iceburn Stravinsky cover was fucking phenomenal. Still is. Uh, that stuff, I thought, wow, we're going to be part of that.
yeah,
Like, I didn't, I mean, I'm thinking away probably because bands like Gorilla Biscuits and Youth of Today were so cool. Like all these kids were rocking their gear. Like we probably wanted acceptance from that crowd more than we
yeah,
ever got. But just on a very sort of base level. But musically, I really loved like I said, Engine Kid and Texas Reason and Game Face. That Game Face Revelation record blew me away. I remember hearing it I don't know if we were signed or we were about to be signed. I think we were being courted, and I bought that record. And I was like, oh man, this is cool. I want to be part of this.
yeah,
Um, and then, but that said, as the 90s went into the oddies, and we did fine, but I didn't think we didn't go, to certain heights with the Revelation, or we felt that maybe Revelation was a little bit less focused on bands like us. I mean, to be perfectly honest, and I don't mean to talk shit on a record label, but I never felt like anyone at Revelation liked the band,
really,
like with the exception of Vic Martin.
yeah,
Um, Jason's like the best human being in the world, but I never thought he really liked the band. He liked hair metal, and he liked rock.
yeah,
Um, and Jordan at the time, I had like maybe two conversations with him,
mm,
maybe. Um, I just felt like they felt like it was good for them to sign us and put out
yeah,
the record, and we're like, okay, cool. Well, we're happy to do that because we get this ability to put records out all over the world, great,
mm,
and tour. But then working again with a label like Iodine, to get back to your question,
yeah,
was comforting because we'd done one record on their first compilation called Ghost in the Gears.
yeah,
Was one of the songs from the demo, right? So I'd known Casey for a while, and so to work with him was like, okay, well, this isn't as big an animal, but this is like feels like a special, loving place where we can make something. And I think when we did that model, the model record in particular, we had there's a lot of love put into that record, and
yeah.
so Casey was the right person to put that out with, without a doubt. You yeah.
So when Garrison kind of disbanded and you guys went your own way, I know Garrison kind of went, a couple months without you. But what was next for you after Garrison? Was it Instruction that
Yeah.
was?
Yeah, Instruction. So I'd moved down to New York while Garrison was still a band, and we were playing these tours mostly in Europe because by 02, 03 we'd stopped playing the US other than like a Boston and New York show because
Yeah,
we got such a better response in Europe and in the UK.
yeah,
And then as we sort of disintegrated, there were talks with Instruction at one point about me coming into the band, and it was like yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then it didn't happen.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, well, whatever. And I just felt like Garrison had sort of come to its natural end.
yeah,
And then I was just playing with anybody. I was answering ads on Craigslist and playing with people, just like show up at a practice space on like, first and first in the city and play with people randomly. And
yeah,
some of it was cheesy and terrible, and most of it was cheesy and terrible. But then about 3 months later, the guys in Instruction called me and they said, look, we're in the middle of mixing our record. Do you want to come be part of the band? Because there's a lot of vocals on this thing.
Yeah.
And, we would like to have you be part of it because nobody else in that band sang. And I'd known already because Type 11 and Garrison played together loads.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, of course. I loved that band anyways. Like Garrison had played a bunch of shows with Instruction.
Yeah.
And so I was over the moon to be on that. But then it was weird too, because now I'm kind of on Geffen Records, but not really, because I never actually officially joined the band. I was a hired gun, like a roadie.
Oh yeah.
Or a sound guy or something. We could do a whole nother thing on that. That was a trip.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting 4.5 years of my life.
Yeah. And was Adam playing with you guys at that time?
Yeah.
too?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Adam was there from day one with Instruction, because Type 11 just basically switched to guitar player, and Phil left and they got Tom Capone from Quicksand and they became Instruction. And so their first batch of songs was actually old Type 11 songs.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So those songs, I mean, Artie is constantly writing and he has all these different ideas. I mean, he probably has a backload of 100 songs, I'm sure, at any given moment. So they were already had all this stuff going when they became Instruction.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the type of shows that Instruction were playing compared to, like Garrison shows, was that kind of hard to get used to because you were playing like bigger shows, you know what I mean? Was it kind of like a new thing for you to get used to?
It's more theatrical. You are, when you're playing a big show, and when there's a barrier between you and the crowd, and there's probably 15, if not 30 feet between you and the audience.
Yeah.
Right. And that wasn't all the shows, but that was quite a few of them. When we went out with Korn and Linkin Park and Snoop Dogg and these big shows, right?
Yeah.
So when you're playing a basement show or even a small club like the Middle East upstairs, right? You can feel people's breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is that really inspiring thing about hardcore, where the audience is the show, you are the show.
Yeah.
And so I think when we started doing those bigger shows, I would go fucking crazy and all my movements would be bigger and bigger because I was trying to give those people the experience of being in a basement show, which is virtually impossible unless you're Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
Iggy Pop's one of the only people I've ever seen that's able to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not Iggy Pop. So yeah, it's strange. It's also strange to be able to hear yourself on stage.
Mm.
It's very strange to have the vocals too loud, and to get used to that.
Yeah.
To have you have the sound guy and there's a guy mixing monitors, and so you're like, oh, can I have a little bit more of the hi-hat? And that takes a while. It's like getting on a bike. It's kind of a slightly different. It's like going from riding a bike to riding a three-wheeled bike, to riding a unicycle. It's like you kind of know it, but it's very different. It's a very different endeavor. So yeah, those were strange shows, but also because we were playing shows that I wouldn't have gone to.
Mm.
So when you're in a band like Garrison, you're playing a show, you're like, oh wow, well, Piebald or Converge or Cave-In or whoever's on Bane is on the bill. You're like, I would be here if I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
Where when we're opening for Papa Roach, I wouldn't be caught dead at that show. So that's a bit of a head fuck too. So you have to kind of write yourself to that and be like, okay, well, this isn't my scene, and I wouldn't normally go to this, but I love this band and I love this music, and I am an entertainer and I'm being paid to entertain, and so you have to make that work, and how are you going to make that work? And so that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you guys played with Papa Roach, Korn,
Puddle of Mud.
Yeah, Chevelle.
A lot of shows with Chevelle. Skindred were fucking awesome, by the way.
Was there
awesome?
Was there a lot of bands that you kind of just didn't like the music, but it was kind of like the show that you guys were playing, and was it tough to kind of get through those shows with the other bands, not your band musically, because obviously that was a different thing, but was it tough to watch those other bands that you kind of just didn't really care for?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, when you go out with anybody, you know, for long enough, you start to see um, the craft in what they do.
Mm.
So a band like Puddle of Mud, right? Who I definitely, up until the time that we toured with them, would have just completely written them off as garbage.
Yeah.
Like um, at the time we were touring with them, I mean, Wes was a mess, but his band was fucking great.
Mm.
Their drummer was really good, and they put on it's a different show. When you're in a basement and you're hearing like and you're hearing like orchid, or hearing,
Yeah.
you know, something this really really really, you know, frenetic energy. That's a completely different feeling than when you're in a huge, let's say, hockey size arena with 4,000 other people,
Yeah.
and it's like dun 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 dun, dun. It's very fucking simple,
Yeah.
and it works, and it makes people bob their heads,
Yeah.
and you start to see like, oh, okay, that's why they do that, or the craftsmanship in it. And then you start to see certain bands and why they're better at it than others.
Mm.
So for example, like Breaking Benjamin, not my thing.
Yeah.
Didn't like it, still don't. Papa Roach, not my thing. Those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
Like I there's not enough good words I can say about the Papa Roach guys. They are consummate entertainers and musicians, and they deserve every ounce of success they get. Korn, boring.
Yeah.
Like insipidly boring. Linkin Park, pretty good. You know, I mean, not I'm not a fan of what they did, but you know, they were good at it.
Yeah.
You know, so there's certain things that you can just kind of like, you can glean at that big level, especially when you get to see them night after night after night for 3 months on tour. You get to see like, oh, that like that's what they do or how they do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
I mean, I think with Korn, wasn't it more of their personalities that kind of turned people off?
I'm not supposed to talk about that.
I've heard stories of you know, it's all over the place, but I mean, I'm sure that turned people off, especially bands that were touring with them, that kind of gave a bad taste in their mouth after a tour with Korn. You know what I mean?
I don't know. If they don't have to be friends with me, that's cool. We don't have to be friends. I'm okay not being friends with them. We'll leave it at that. I don't want to talk shit on other people.
Um,
I mean, I do, but I'm not going to.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This isn't the forum for that.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, where did Gay for Johnny Depp come in, and how did that band come about? And where in the timeline of your bands was it?
Pretty much the same time as Instruction. So I had started Gay for Johnny Depp before Garrison ended, and before I joined Instruction, but I kept it going because Instruction was completely not my thing, right? I was a hired gun,
Yeah,
and it was Artie's thing, and I was there to be Artie's foil. And if he says jump, I was like, how high, man? What do you need?
yeah,
And I think I talked about this in another podcast. I think coming from like a theater background, that was very easy for me to do, to be like,
yeah,
okay, you're in charge now. What do you need? And
yeah,
like bands were like, I'm in charge now. This is what I need. And so Gay for Johnny Depp was my thing. And it was originally a joke on the whole Boston spazzy hardcore music scene, because I think that stuff is so easy to write, for me anyways.
yeah,
Because, you know, being a melodic and having a catchy melody is hard for me. Writing energetic rock music is not, you know, spazzy stuff isn't that hard for me. So it was like, let's do that and call it Gay for Johnny Depp, just as a big fuck you to that whole scene. Because like, I felt like you just see people be like, oh God, like, oh man, like, oh, Orchid's so brilliant. Not to take anything away from Orchid, but I'm
mm,
like, they're okay. They're fun. They're not the next coming of Christ. Like, that stuff's not hard to do. Like, and I'm certain what I'm saying is sounding super pretentious, and I don't mean it to, but it wasn't hard from my point of view.
mm,
So I felt like I wanted to do a band that had these hardcore elements, but also was a joke, like that, and calling it Gay for Johnny Depp, and being as camp as we could in our interviews and as absurd as we could in our videos. It was like, the less you care, the more popular you get. And that just seemed to be how it went. Like, the less we cared about stuff and the more we made fun of things, the press thought it was really funny. And so we just went with it, and we're like, all right, cool. And we got very fortunate. We did really well in the UK, and only the UK, but that was awesome. Like, I'm a huge Anglophile. I lived, through college, I lived in the UK. I lived in London in '95 for about 8 months. And so to be able to go back and play those places and have bigger crowds come out and see me, that was special. That was really nice.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so what would happen with that band is I would write everything, give it to the rhythm section, who didn't listen to that kind of music at all, like the Old Glory stuff.
Yeah.
And we would write the record, we would record the record, and then we'd give it to Artie. Artie would listen to it for about 5 days to a week, drink a case of beer, and record all the vocals in one night. Record's done. And then I would mix it. And it was just a fun way to work. And so that was a really creative outlet for me, which could be try to be as least commercially successful as possible when we're in a band at the same time with Artie that's trying to be as most commercially successful as possible, right? So we're trying to be on the radio, and we're playing these big shows in front of thousands of people. I still have that thing that makes me feel that music is special, which is I'm playing, filthy little clubs and getting people jumping all over me.
Yeah.
That's why I really wanted that. And I think maybe, yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
I mean, was that some of the funnest live shows you played in that band? Like,
Without a doubt.
For the end
Doubt.
and stuff like
that. Yeah, that band was really, we were either really, really good or we were really, really bad, depending on how much alcohol we'd had. And when it was on, it was really cool. It was really fun. And the crowd was with us, and it was just something, I don't know, some kind of, lightning in a bottle. It felt like lightning in a bottle anyways. I've been really lucky in certain points in my life to work with people where I feel there is that, the band is better than the individuals, that there's something that happens. I think the first incarnation of Garrison in particular was really special. It had that. The Gay for Johnny Depp had that for a little bit. I think some of my new bands had that, honestly, a little bit. And I'm really lucky to have that more than once. A lot of people, if they experience it at all, they just get it once.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just love that feeling. I love that feeling of, that's why I don't have solo records, is I just love collaboration. And I love working with people. And if I think about the list of people I've worked with, it's awe-inspiring. I've worked with so many cool cats, and like great musicians. I learned so much from them. It's really rad.
Yeah. Now, I want to ask though, what kind of gave you you wanted to make fun of the spazcore, like Boston scene? Like what was like? I mean, I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Just because, did it leave a bad taste in your mouth just because you thought it was kind of simplistic in a way, or was like?
No, you had hardcore, like straight edge hardcore, which is super simplistic, right? And then you had, and then you had the art core, which I thought was a little bit pseudo intellectual. You know what I mean? Like thoughts of Ionesco, and like it's cute. It's like yeah. I remember discovering Warhol too. It's like that, and I think that it was that we were. I mean, when did that band start? 2004. So I was 30, right? So at 30, I felt like I'd seen enough that I could mock the whole rock thing, the whole thing. It wasn't just spazcore. It was the whole thing. We would play a festival and make fun of the people on the festival. We played a festival with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And all the banter was making fun of Guns N' Roses. Like, it's just because I think having experienced the absurdity of being on a major label and doing the major label thing, which was Instruction.
Yeah.
That I had this outlet to just sort of poke my finger in the eye of the music industry.
Yeah.
And everything about the bloated, silly rock and roll thing that I could. And that silly thing exists in every substrata of music. There's a silly pretentiousness that permeates all genres of music at some point,
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
like you see, like, I love John Zorn, but like, at some point somebody's got to come up John Zorn and be like, dude, that record sucks. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be one record, or like, there's that great story where, like, Sonic Youth's kids, like their daughter came down and they were like listening back to their new record, and their daughter was 13, and she just looks at them and goes, "You guys know that noise rock is only interesting for the people that are in the bands, right?" And their jaws drop. This is their daughter, and they're
Yeah.
totally getting called out by their daughter, and they're like, "Yeah, I guess so." You know, like I think that's okay. I think we all need to be taken down a peg once in a while,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if it can be done in a nice, lighthearted, fun way, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And if I can do it, why even better?
Yeah. 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 I just had to ask. And I also want to ask about the new bands that you,
Sure.
right now. Her Head's on Fire and Judas Knife. How did those bands come about? I mean, it seems like you have so many irons in the fire, and like you're a dad, and you like obviously work and stuff like that. Where do you find all the time and energy to, do all this and have the drive and fever to keep like going and just keep chugging out music?
Well, I don't watch football. I don't know. I don't know. I don't like baseball. I don't watch sports.
Yeah.
Nothing against sports, but that's where I find the time. I don't know. I'm not up on a lot of TV shows.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I don't know. Judas Knife was something I always had in the back of my head to do, but it wasn't until I was able to work and collaborate with Drew that it came to fruition. He was able to focus something that I didn't realize I had in my head
Yeah.
properly, and that has like sort of some angular shellacky kind of things, but also I adore Depeche Mode, and I really like melody, and so sort of and working in my lower register singing,
Mm.
and so that's what that was, and I really have a lot. That's just so much love for that, to be able to create that record was really fun, and to see where it goes is neat, where that project goes.
Yeah.
Just because I mean, I don't want to be playing emo rock music for my whole life. Like, it's time to reinvent yourself. Like, I don't know, like I'm trying to make the sounds that I'm hearing now.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to be hearing, I'm going to be hearing different sounds in 10 years, whatever I'm making, you know? Um, and, I have a lot of love for the stuff that I've done in the past, but I'm most interested in the stuff that I'm doing now because it's now. Her Head's on Fire is just, it was myself and Jeff Dean, who he was in a band called All Eyes West when I was in a band called I Hate Her Freedom. We played a
Mm.
lot together, and we're just pals. And he would play me stuff. He's like, at one point he asked me to, could I help him out with a melody on a song for one of his bands? And I was like, why don't you just have me sing for your band? And so he was like, okay. And so that just came together, and the rhythm section was, wonderful. And that stuff's really effortless because that's like all stuff that we know how to do. So that's like rock pop,
Yeah.
um, indie rock pop. And so that was just like, everybody in that band has been a touring musician for so long that there's no real ego, and
Mm.
we want to do, everybody wants to do what's best for the song. So someone will go, should that part go two parts or one part? And someone will go, I think it should only go one part. And we all go, cool. End of discussion. Like, there's no, when you're younger, you're so much invested in like the difference of like, is that going to be like two rests or one rest before it comes in?
Yeah.
Because if it's one rest, that doesn't tell people who I am as an artist. But if it's two rests, it does, like, and you're so into your thing about stuff. And it's nice to be at a level where we're kind of all on the same page, where you all kind of get it. And it's like you're talking your own special language,
Yeah.
this language that we've cobbled together over being touring musicians for long enough, and we're able to sort of chat to each other in that way. That band's really just lighthearted and fun.
And,
Whereas Judas Knife is definitely more like that's a lot more intense as far as the what I'm trying to say with it.
yeah. And you have an upcoming show with Piebald coming up.
We do.
Yeah. When is that? And
December 16th at Pearl Street. We're playing with Piebald. Yeah, Her Head's on Fire is.
Yeah.
And I think we're playing the night before with the Jukebox Romantics and Neck Scars in Brooklyn at
Nice.
Kingsland, maybe. And that'll be just kind of a warm-up show. But that'll be fun, man. Like, I love those Piebald guys. They put
Yeah.
on a hell of a show too. And that's the thing about that band too, is like, it's not just good songs. They're super entertaining.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, everybody that knows that band, it's not just the Travis show. You know Travis, and you know Aaron, and you know Luke, and you know Andy.
Yeah.
And they're all unique individuals on stage. And everybody that likes that band really likes that band. Like there's nobody there that's a
Yeah,
casual fan.
yeah, that's true.
And those are the best shows to play, right? Like, because people are really happy to be there. So I'm
Yeah,
really looking forward to that. That'll be a good time.
yeah, that'll be great. Did COVID concerns before you started playing shows? I know Judas Knife had did they have a handful of shows that you guys played like during
Who?
Judas Knife? You guys played out.
Yeah, we played a good. Well, it's been great because everybody, in New York, because we've only played New York, really. You show up to the door with your ID and your Vax card.
Yep.
Everybody in there is vaxxed, and it's great. It's like being in a room full of adults.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome to look around and be like, everybody in here is taking care of their shit.
Yeah.
By the way, Hal, have you had your booster?
I haven't yet. I'm not due yet
Get
because
on that. Oh, it's not been long enough?
I'm not due yet. February I'm due.
Okay.
I was late to the game. I got my second dose in the end of July. I had to get it done before I went to Bahamas. I had a little vacation in the Bahamas, so I had to get, a 2-week span before I got my second booster. So I was a little late to the second one. Not boosters, cool. I meant.
Well, yeah, get your booster, man.
Oh, I'm going to. I caught COVID probably, even being vaccinated. I caught COVID about a month ago. I hope they did. So it was a rough time for three of us, and luckily my youngest daughter, who's 9, she was asymptomatic. But my
good.
12 kind of had a rough go of it. It was like 3 days bad for her with high fever. And
is she doing okay now?
Yeah,
anything residual?
Yeah, back to playing basketball and stuff like that. But
awesome.
She was going to have a game tonight, and it got canceled due to other kids with COVID, whether it on her team or the team that they were playing. So they got canceled tonight. But we see that a lot. You know what I mean? So
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Usually at the end, I don't want to keep you for too long. I always do a rapid fire every talk that I do.
Hit me.
Are you ready for some? And it's catered towards hardcore. You know what I mean? So
Oh, it's good. I'm glad you're not asking me to take out pi to 30 digits or something. I'm glad it's somewhat musical based, but that's cool. Ask me hardcore questions.
All right, my first question: all-time favorite New England punk hardcore band for you, all time?
It's going to be 2. It's going to be Converge, and then there's a band called Plaid Gravy from Worcester.
Really? I don't think I've ever heard them.
There was just a drummer and a guitar player, and they would play songs like, they'd cover Neil Diamond. We're coming to America. Fuck you. We're coming to America. And that was a hoot when I was 15. Anyway,
yeah.
There you go. Oh, no, Nightstick. They were great, too. Anyways, go on.
My second one. What was the first real punk hardcore show you attended?
I saw Slapshot at the WAG.
Oof.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Did you see that Slapshot just did their 35th anniversary shows at the Middle East just last night?
Not.
I think it was 2 weeks ago. And of course, there was a bunch of COVID clusters there after the show.
Yeah. What can you say?
Yeah, what can you say?
I was terrified. I was terrified. I was probably 89 or 90 maybe. That was like the first one. And I was just like, someone was like, don't look people in the eye, but don't look away.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really remember anything about the band. Yeah. I just remember being like checking out the crowd.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to get shivved? That kind of thing.
Were you old enough to go see shows at the Channel in Boston, Massachusetts?
No. I saw, no. Or at least I didn't. I don't know if I was old enough, but I didn't. I saw shows it became Bun Ratties, right?
Yeah, Bun Ratties.
So I saw shows at Bun Ratties. I saw Osric Tentacles, which are a crazy hippie jam techno band.
Yeah.
There. But I didn't see bands at Channel. I know there's some epic shows there, but I didn't see them.
Yeah. I that was like kind of my first exposure to hardcore was back at the Channel. Because they always had Saturday and Sunday hardcore matinees back then, and they did a lot of metal too. At some point, I always say on all my talks, my first show was SSD, DYS, and the Angry Samoans. I don't think we even stayed for Angry Samoans. I had kind of hair, so I was scared shitless. I was 11 years old at the time, so awesome. I never went back to a hardcore show until like '87. But in between, saw a bunch of thrash metal shows at the channel. So I saw like Flotsam and Jetsam when Jason Newsted was playing in that band.
Mm-hmm.
Saw Creator and Death Angel and all that stuff there. And then I finally started watching, like, I saw, Gorilla Biscuits at the channel. I
Mm-hmm.
Slapshot like every weekend at the channel. Mighty Mighty Boss Stones, before they got big, always played at the channel and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
they played the WAG quite a bit too. I saw the Boston's quite a bit, but
So
they were more the ska thing going on. They had hardcore elements, but they're more ska.
yeah, I know Dickie was in Impact Unit way back in the day too, which was like kind of basically a straight band too. But
Mm-hmm.
I digress. I always go on a sidebar. I didn't mean to get sidetracked.
That's okay.
My next question: what was your all-time favorite show you played, or a couple of them?
Well, the Garrison. We'll do the Garrison show. The best Garrison show Garrison ever played was at the CPA in Florence, Italy, and we were the only band that played. And basically, the CPA had taken this. They were like a collective, like an anarchist punk collective, and they'd taken a factory that made machinery for other factories. So it was a huge, huge factory in the city, and they dug up the marble, and they had like an indoor garden, and they had a library, and they had a theater, and this is the kind of place where like Fugazi would play when they would
Yeah.
come through, and they had a venue, and we show up, they show us where we're going to sleep, they feed us an amazing dinner, and they're like, well, the show's going to start at midnight. I'm like, okay, and you're the only band, and it's like 11:15, and I'm like, there's 5 people there. I'm like, this is gonna be horrible, just horrible. And then right before midnight, 500 kids showed up, and they wouldn't let us get off the stage. We had to play half our set again, because that was all the songs that we knew how to play at the time, and that was, I still get like butterflies in my heart when I think about that show. That was really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, that's awesome. What was one of your favorite shows when you played with Instruction?
The shows with Instruction, let me think. Maybe any of the ones in the UK that we did were great because they had started in the UK and were pretty cool in the UK. So being able to do the thing that they did in the UK was really fun. We went with a band called A. That was fun. We played with Hell is for Heroes over there too. That was a good time.
Yeah. What about and give me one show with Gay for Johnny Depp. What was the best show that you thought?
We played a show in Newcastle, and the drummer and the singer drank a lot before the show went on. And at the time, Artie was wearing like, sort of making fun of like the Slayer thing. He had like a bracelet with nails and spikes coming out of it. And we were horrible. But within the first song, he was running around the crowd with that big spiky thing, and he knocked over the merch table. And so this really decent crowd that had come, and I thought like, oh, great, we're gonna sell this merch, first show of tour. And they were terrified, and they tried to leave, and he locked the door and blocked them in. And the opening band, Blackfish, were up above us in like a DJ booth, and they locked themselves in the booth to stay away from him. And I was so pissed off that I at one point turned, and I don't think I did this intentionally, but I raked him across the face with the headstock of my guitar. So he was bleeding everywhere. And that was memorable.
Nice.
Everybody that was there will say they were there, and they said, I'm sure they will say that band sucked. So that show happened.
You guys pulled like a Bad Luck 13 extravaganza stuff.
Yeah. We didn't show up with socks with cue balls in them like those guys, but yeah.
All right, my next question was, what was your all-time favorite hardcore punk show that you attended that you didn't play? That you witnessed, that you kind of went to and saw?
That's a good question. Rocket from the Crypt downstairs at the Middle East was pretty special. Tortoise, not really hardcore punk, but on their first tour upstairs in the Middle East was really magical too. Those are the first 2 that come to mind, I think. Yeah. Seeing Jane's Addiction a lot, but I mean that was in the early 90s, so
yeah. What was your favorite hardcore show that you saw at the Space?
Bane. Anytime Bane played, Yeah, anytime Bane played was great.
I always talk about. I'm a big movie guy. I know you just said that you don't really have time for movies and stuff like
Yeah.
that, But what was the last movie you watched, if you can remember?
No, we watched the last movie in a theater I watched was the Shang-Chi and the Ten
Yep.
Rings,
Yep.
which is beautiful because of all the different martial arts styles that they do.
Mm.
Um, but the last movie I watched was My Neighbor Totoro, which is a wonderful animated film by the same guy that did Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke.
Oh, nice, nice.
Uh,
Yes, I've
and I
heard.
showed it to my kids. So My Neighbor Totoro, that was beautiful. So I watched that Friday night.
Nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice. Um, I always ask this too. What is your all-time favorite horror movie?
Um, Rosemary's Baby.
A good
Or
one.
The Shining, The Shining,
Yeah, yeah.
The Shining, The Shining. Yeah.
Now what did you think of Doctor Sleep? Were you into that or no?
Never saw it.
Oh, you haven't seen Doctor Sleep?
Nope.
That's
No.
like the story after The Shining when
Yeah, I know about it.
Danny. Yeah, yeah. It's a long movie.
Yeah.
It's long. It's
I
like two.
like long movies though. When I was like 13 or 14 years old, Gandhi was my favorite movie in the world. So
Mm,
yeah, I like long movies.
yeah, and I mean anybody who loves The Godfather, those are some long movies too. So
Those are great movies. Yeah.
yeah. My next question. I'm a big hip hop guy. I said it before.
Mhm.
If you've been listening to hip hop at all, what have you been listening to lately?
I don't listen to a lot of hip hop, but if I do, I'm eternally impressed with Donald Glover, Childish Gambino. Um, I like music that is usually a little bit more sonically dense
Mhm.
than hip hop, but for most hip hop that I've heard, which is why I really enjoyed Public Enemy because I
Yeah.
thought the production that Shockley Brothers did was really cool because it had so many different things going on with the horns and the sirens.
Yeah.
Um, so I can't, yeah, but so if it's just wordplay, so I like beautiful lyrical wordplay. So Childish Gambino.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. Now, were you a Yo MTV Raps guy when that first came out, or no?
No,
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 you you didn't get into that.
no. I mean, it was fine, but it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, my last question is favorite song to play live. We'll do Garrison. What was your favorite songs to play live when you were in Garrison?
Okay. So serious heavy drama because people loved it and they would sing along. That
Yeah.
that was that was always fun to play. But that said, the last song on that EP, Untitled,
Mm.
the middle part in the middle eight is my favorite piece of music Garrison ever did. When
Yeah.
it goes a little bit major, it goes bum bum ba dum ba dum bum ba da 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 dum bum ba da ba da dum ba da da dum.
Yeah.
Which Ed wrote, and that is my favorite thing to play live because I just feel that that's a moment that I would get chills at,
Yeah.
on stage. So probably those two.
Um, so I have to ask, Gay for Johnny Depp, what was your favorite song to play?
And they don't have songs, man. it's, it's just a theatrical production and noise. I don't know. Whatever I would say in between the songs is my favorite thing.
I mean, was it hard to come up with all those outlandish like lyrics and stuff like that?
No, I already wrote the lyrics. I just did
I,
the song titles.
I think it's funny. You go to like Discogs and look at that, and it's like the write up is like you guys had an obsession, a homoerotic obsession with Johnny Depp. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, he's a really, really beautiful looking guy. I mean, those cheekbones go for fucking miles. Um, I used to tell people I've watched all his movies, but not with the sound on. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he's a really pretty guy, or he was.
And finally, I have a two-part. Would Garrison ever get back together again to play some reunion shows?
How much are you offering?
Well, I mean, just not me personally, but if somebody came up to you and is
Yeah,
there?
sure. Why not? Yeah, I mean, as long as it's fun, and there's no reason it shouldn't be fun. Yeah, yeah. It's just a question of working it out schedule wise. I mean, like I have my bands that I'm really into and I love, and I'm working on them. But if find time to get together and play a show and the right opportunity comes along, of course we'd play. That'd
Yeah.
be great. That'd be really fun to go down memory lane.
Yeah. And my second question, is there a fever ever to play like, more of a harder style of music, kind of in the vein of not as crazy as Gay for Johnny Depp, but like a harder, maybe, band that you would like to get into in the future?
I'd love to play in a band that sounded like Ministry on the Mine is a Terrible Thing to Taste tour.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, that heavy resonates with me. I don't like metal, but the industrial side of things,
yeah.
That's awesome. So I would
Yeah.
love to do something like that at some point.
Yeah, that was kind of almost in the Primus vein that you were talking about, when that kind of got popular, and then Ministry kind of got popular with that heavier style at that
Mm-hmm.
point, where they were playing those songs on the radio, which were pretty fucking heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I mean, the thing about Ministry that I always really liked is there's nothing. I always felt with a lot of metal, it's like it's theatrical in like a cheesy way, like trying to be evil, and I just don't buy it. Like I
Yeah,
just don't like I don't buy the corpse paint. I don't believe it. I think you're just a kid and you're trying to like I just think it's silly. But with Ministry, I would listen to Ministry and be like, no, these are some really fucked up guys. Like they are honestly nihilistic, and there's a lot of drug addiction going on, a lot of desperation, and you can't fake that, man. And I felt that in 1989, 1990, Ministry were untouchable, and probably untouchable since for anything as far as like what I consider heavy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me. I was stoked to get a little bit of time to talk and chat. It's super fun, and like I said, I was stoked that you agreed to come on and talk to me for a while about the old days and what you have going on now. I wish you the best holidays, safe.
You as well, Hal. Thank you.
Holidays, family, and let's stay in touch. Anything you ever need, hit me up, and vice versa. You know what I mean?
Sounds great, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. Be well.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you later, Joseph.
Bye-bye.